Good afternoon. Welcome to this week's Record Rangers podcast, brought to you by our sponsors at NordVPN. I'm your host, Douglas Dickie, Ibrox season ticket holder, and I'm joined today by Jack Cranmare, a budding young sports journalist and also a Rangers season ticket holder. And joining us remotely, no doubt from some tropical location, is Rangers expert Andy Newport. How are you doing, Andy?
First time Paisley's ever been called tropical, but fair enough. Yeah, I'm all good. How are you boys?
Yep, absolutely. Great. So, Rangers obviously at the weekend produced a performance fit for a Queen, an 8-0 Scottish Cup victory over Queen's Park. I think some would say that it has exorcised the ghosts of last season. I'm not sure I agree with that. I probably won't give this game a second thought after we come off air, but I'll never forget the day they beat us. But thankfully, there was no issues at the weekend. A thoroughly professional performance and a decent run out for some new signings and a decent run out for some guys coming back to back to action. Sorry, Andy, what was your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it was a very strong lineup that Danny Rohl selected. I think a lot of fans have been glad to see the new signings getting a run out. And listen, it's something that this Rangers team haven't done well enough in recent years is sort of take care of the easy games and take care of them easily. You only have to look at that game 12 months ago to see how bogged down they seemed to get against opposition that really had no ambition other than to sit in and hope to snatch something in the break. This was entirely different. They went for Queen's Park from the off, got the early goal. Unlike against Killie on Wednesday night, where they sort of went a goal and a man up early on and just sort of sat back and coasted really until late flurry of goals late on. They really went after Queens, and it's tough on them. Side sort of struggling at the wrong end of the championship, up against a team that have been spending millions on it. But listen, Rangers were ruthless, and I think that's what Danny Rohl has been asking this team to show a wee bit a more cutting edge, a more killer cutting edge, and obviously to get the 5-0 up at the break, James Tavernier getting his first ever career hat trick was terrific for him. But this is a Rangers team that have looked at times to be a bit over reliant on odd moments of individual brilliance of set pieces. So to see them finding a scoring touch and scoring heavily, as I say, 12 goals in 2 games, I think that'll do confidence a world of good going into what is a huge week in the Premiership.
Yeah, I mean, obviously came off the back of that Kilmarnock game, and Danny Rohl had pointed out that the fans were, really nervous. There was some grumblings at half time in that Killie game. No such issues on Sunday, but I think that's what the fans, Jack. That's what we want to see. We want to see us going into these games and blowing teams away that we should be, especially at Ibrox.
Yeah, that's been an issue this season. There's been so many games where it's gone down in the last few minutes and we're still only a goal up, and we have that scar tissue as Rangers fans over the last few years. How many times have we seen a late goal going against us? So to see us actually go out and dominate teams and put them to the sword early doors, it's what we need to do, and we need to translate that into the league. And to see a lot of different goal scorers is great as well, because again, over the last few years, Rangers have been overly reliant on a couple of players for goals, and to see that getting spread about at the weekend was great to see.
Yeah, Andy, there was 2 guys I was going to kind of highlight. One was obviously the first goals for Ryan Naderi. I seen your colleague Keith Jackson likened him to Jelavic in a piece yesterday. I mean, I have to say, if he's half as good as the big man, then we're in for a real treat. And the other one was Antman. I know you'd done something on him. He's struggled like so many others. I think with the pressure of Ibrox, the pace of the Scottish game, and caveat it with the fact that it is Queen's Park. It is a team that's struggling at the bottom of the Scottish Championship. But that kind of confidence they can build for that can only be a good thing, surely.
Yeah, I mean, he spoke about that himself when we met with him in the press conference after the game, that this is a team that's easy to come into and play for. It wasn't quite as easy at the start of the season when he was playing for the side that was getting booed off, and every week and there's protests outside the front door. The manager was getting escorted almost off the premises with a police escort. This is it's such a different picture to the one that we saw at the beginning of the season. So it's the pressure's off in a sense. Him coming in, there's other players that are stepping up and taking responsibility and driving the team on, and it allows the guys that are maybe you've got to cut them some slack in the sense that they're new into a new club, a new country under Russell Martin. They were trying to learn a new way of playing. It was pretty radical. Whereas Danny Rohl stripped it back and it's playing a more, just a style of play that's just easier to get your head around. Not quite so many chances, unnecessary risk taken at the back. And listen, yeah, I mean, there was definitely question marks asked over individuals at the start of the season in terms of how do they handle the pressure at Ibrox. Well, I think you've got to say, of late, they've handled it pretty well. Some of the fans, as you saw last week, are still, Scott and I discussed last week, are still to be utterly convinced by this team, to trust them more. I think if they can come through this week against, obviously, Motherwell and Hearts, I'm sure we'll come on to, I think if they can come through that, I think you'll see that trust, that belief, that faith in the squad come back in abundance. But, that's still a pretty big if as we sit here right now. But in terms of Antman, yeah, he's definitely, I mean, I just couldn't get my head around him to once at the start of the season. That's a guy that was get 15 assists in Holland last year. And when he came into the team, he obviously had that great night against Victoria Pilsen where he basically creates 2 goals. But bar that, he'd really not done much at all in an attacking sense. He seemed intent on whenever he got the ball on the right hand side coming in field onto his right foot, but then not really being in the sort of shape in order to pass the ball, to cross the ball, to shoot. He started in the left hand side on Sunday. He made his sort of return to the team against Cranmare where he gets his first ever goal for the club again off the left hand side, and all of a sudden to me it made a lot more sense. He was coming in, he was getting involved, he was playing 1-2s. Obviously, he gets his goal. I asked him after the Queen's Park game if the left hand side was his preferred option. He said no, not really. For go ahead Eagles last year, he played predominantly right. For Finland, he plays predominantly left. He's happy to play on either side. So, but really, what Rangers need him to be doing is getting numbers up. It's getting goals. It's getting crosses in. It's getting assists. He wasn't doing that at all at the start of the season, and he was struggling as everybody else was. But if he can get himself in. Gets an assist as well at the weekend, setting up header for Ryan Naderi. If he can add that back to his game, then he can be an effective weapon. I think there's a lot of people that was wondering, what's happened to this guy. As he said, he was so dangerous in Holland last year, and he's looked anything but that so far for Rangers. So getting him back to that kind of form will be good news for Danny Rohl. As for the comparisons with Naderi and Jelavic, I've seen one of our colleagues last week comparing two Romans with Arthur Newman. I think we should just calm down with the comparisons a wee bit. It's been a fortnight with some of these guys. I think they've got a long way to go before you can start talking about them in the same breath as those two are particular who are legends. Good starts, but Naderi certainly showed he's got a nose for goals. Obviously, gets himself off the mark early doors, gets himself another header at the start of the second half against Queens. But really, what impressed me was just his desperation to get across the front post, to get to the back post, to put himself in positions to score goals. Every time there's a ball flashed across the box, he wasn't far away, which is not something I think you can say about Rangers strikers this season. Yusuf Chermiti at times it seems slow to react. As much as I think he's improved, especially outside his hold-up play and how much of a sort of focal point he is in terms of getting the team up the pitch, when it comes to doing what a striker's supposed to do, and that's getting the end of crosses, putting himself in a position to score. I still think there's question marks over his hunger. I think Naderi, you can see he's a proper centre forward, he's a proper number 9. He wants the ball into the 6-yard box and he wants to be sort of getting himself in the end of it. So keeps that up this week, especially a tough game tomorrow night against Motherwell. Then Rangers fans can be really encouraged by what they've seen from him so far.
Yeah, I mean, I would obviously let's temper expectations with some of these guys. Rangers fans have been here before many times over the last 15 years. So, but a good start. Quickly before we move on to Motherwell, Andy, I was going to ask you if you could kind of explain to us the situation here. Obviously, after Queen's Park game or after the Stenhousemuirs game with Falkirk on Sunday night, Rangers were drawn against Celtic in the next round of the Cup. It sets up a Old Firm double blockbuster. I'm sure we'll be, dusting down all sorts of descriptions for it, adjectives, in early March. But there's been talk that Celtic might request a full Broomloan stand. Andy, can you give us a bit of background into that?
Yeah, well, the Scottish Cup rules say that away teams have, I think the crucial word is the right to request up to 20% of the home team's stadium. Now, for Ibrox, that would be a capacity in the region of 10,000 seats. Now, traditionally, Celtic, before the two clubs had their tete-a-tete, shall we say, over tickets, used to obviously take the Broomloan stand, which is in the region of about 7,500 seats. So a lot of excited Celtic fans have been suggesting, well, this means we can see a return to the allocations of old. They can get the Broomloan back. I think that's unlikely, I must admit. I think, obviously, the two clubs, having had this sort of away fan lockout for derbies for a number of seasons, came to an agreement last year where I think it's something in the region of 5 or 6% of each other stadium they were giving up. So for Ibrox, that means 2,000 tickets. I think for Celtic Park, it's about 2,500. And obviously, both clubs have put in additional security measures to allow that, including netting that goes up around both the away ends whenever the two teams meet in derby action. So I'd be stunned if really Rangers are content to go much beyond that. Celtic, a story revealed by our colleague Mick Gannon, have requested the Broomloan at least, if not the full 10,000. But I think there's precedent already been set that might not happen. You mean Celtic played Hibs in a Scottish Cup tie last year, and I think Hibs were after the full 20%, which would have been something about 14,000 seats at Celtic Park, and they split it halfway at 7,000. I just don't see it. Rangers, there's obviously security, safety concerns to be taken into play. The police have said today they'll sort of go along with the clubs decide, but I think the police will be keen to have, certainly an involvement in the discussions. And given the fact that the two teams play at Ibrox the week before, when, as I say, they will have this 2,000 seat allocation set out, and again with the netting up and all the measures that go around that, I can just imagine the police just saying, "Listen, let's just stick with this and go with what we've seen." Because in the day, if Rangers do agree to give Celtic the full Broomloan, they would then be well within their rights, say next year, if the two teams want to be drawn to face each other at Celtic Park, Rangers would turn around going, right, we'd like to have 7,500 seats at Parkhead. And again, I just can't see that. I think the two clubs have argued back and forth over this in terms of the league allocations, over how many tickets they're going to give each other. There's been calls time and time again for the return to the sort of scenes we've seen in the past with big away sections, and they've been resisted and been unable to reach an agreement on it. So I think the most likely outcome is the sort of 2,500 seat allocation we will go and see for the league games. Still to be decided yet, but that's just my hunch in the whole feeling.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think it'll be stuck with what we've got at the moment. So moving on, we're back to the weekly grind of the league this week, or what was a grind earlier in the season. Now there's a great deal of excitement. There's obviously a big game happening tonight, Hearts against Hibs, which will have a bearing on where Rangers stand at the end of the week. This is, Andy, you were saying earlier on about how some of the fans don't quite fully trust this team yet. If I'm being honest, I think I include myself in that. I'm still kind of waiting for the bums rush. I don't know how Jack kind of feels about that, but Motherwell are flying right now. We seem to have, people talk about us picking up the momentum again. Yet it's not so long ago since we were stinking the place out against Hibs at Easter Road. I mean, Jack, how confident are you that we can go to Motherwell and get a result?
It's one of these one of these things. Being a Rangers fan, you never know what Rangers team's going to turn up. I mean, I'm 50-50 on us going there, blowing them out of the water, the new boys firing, winning 3-0, or going there and seeing a repeat of what we've seen at Easter Road, what we've seen at Tynecastle, these tough away games we've had this season, where we go there, we start slow, we go a goal behind, and then we're launching crosses into the box. I hope, and I think that Danny Rohl has kind of tweaked it enough with the new boys that we won't resort to these sort of old tactics of get the ball at Tavernier, launch it in. We have a plan, we have a more defined style, and I think we can take the game to Motherwell. But as always, I think the first goal is vital. This is a team that I don't think they've conceded a home goal in 8 games. So it's going to be tough to break them down. But I think if we can do that first, get that first goal, settle into our game, get their crowd a bit antsy, then I think we should be good to go for the win. But again, if we don't turn up, if we take it lightly, then we could be in trouble because they are a dangerous team.
Andy, I'm intrigued. I think Chermiti's back fit for tomorrow. So
yeah, him and Manny Fernandez.
Yeah. I'm intrigued to know what you think. If we'll maybe go with two up top, he played two up top on Sunday. I'm in kind of two minds about it because I think with 4-4-2, there's a lot more attacking intent. And for me, one of the complaints, if I had to have a complaint of the Danny Rohl era, and that seems to have, in fairness, the last game and a half has kind of turned that on its head. Let's say, yeah, he made us really hard to beat, very, very organised. But he hadn't yet proven that he could set up a team to create loads of chances and score loads of goals. Now, in fairness, since I complained about that at half time against Kilmarnock, we've promptly reeled off 12 goals in whatever 135 minutes. So the 4-4-2, I think, gives you more attacking options. But I feel going to Fir Park, do we need that three across the middle? It'll be interesting to see how he goes with this.
I don't think there's any doubt that he's going to, sort of look to, at the very least, sort of match up with Motherwell in the middle of the pitch. They're so creative in the way that they create overloads in the sort of certain areas. They've got this way of sort of creating a box in midfield where they've got the sort of the two there, but then you see like a Masu Hise or a side sort of dropping in, and it becomes almost a four in the midfield. So I don't think there's any chance Rangers are going to allow themselves to be outnumbered there. So I think you'll see, I imagine it'll be Raskin and Chukwani. I think his ability, his power off the ball, his ability to win back possession will be key. I think the big question marks whether or not it's Mikey Moore or Taylor Asgard sort of off that 10, or maybe either where he goes, he sticks with Diamandi and goes with the sort of flat three that we saw at Celtic Park, just to sort of cut off those passing lanes and protect the back line a wee bit more. But I personally would like to see Mikey Moore get a run in that central slot and give him that chance to show just the drive and energy that we saw against Kilmarnock last week. I thought it was terrific. I think Antman coming back into form means you could probably play him on the left hand side, if not Gisama with his pace. Scott Olsen's looking brighter and brighter with every run out that he's had after quite a lengthy layoff at Wolfsburg. But I think for me, Mikey Moore's the guy who just excites me the most when you watch this Rangers team. He's just, we spoke about it to death, but for a guy at 18, youngest player in the side, to be the biggest leader for me in terms of how he wants to approach opposition, how he wants to take the game, how he wants to run with the ball, how he wants to create opportunities, how he wants to even score goals himself. It's just such a breath of fresh air. So I'd be really interested to see if Danny Rohl could get him into that sort of central zone with guys running off him out in the width, giving, asking questions of Motherwell. There's a question mark over who plays up front. As much as Ryan Naderi is really starting to do well, I just think Rangers will want to get a foothold in the game, and I think in that sense, I think that's what Yusuf Chermiti gives you. He gives you somebody that you can play off of. He gets you up the pitch. He's got the power. I think that's the thing that this Rangers team has now got. Definitely a dynamic of it is that they're big, they're physical, they're strong. I mean, you look at Chukwani. He's an absolute unit. Stuart Robbins is very much cut for the same cloth. You get Yusuf
Danny
Chermiti
Rohl.
there.
Yeah.
You
Danny
get Manny
Rohl
Fernandez back in as well. Yeah, so, I mean, they're just height and size is definitely something that Roll's identified as a need for this team.
Do we think Fernandez goes straight back in?
I'd have him straight back in. I think not just defensively, I think his ability going forward at set pieces could be really vital. I mean, he's one of our top scorers from the centre of defence, and he didn't start playing games until October, November. So I think he goes right back in, not just for what he adds at the back, stability there, with what he can offer going forward as well.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any doubt that Fernandes comes back in. I mean, Giga's had a couple of decent performances since coming back from AFCON, but I think there's been times, especially before he went away, where he was absolute bomb scare material, especially in the bigger games. I'm not sure, given the importance of this game, I think there's been a level of trust built up with Manny Fernandes. I'm still not sure that there's the same level of faith in Nasser Giga, so I don't think there's any doubt that it'll be a Suter Fernandes backline centre back pairing tomorrow night.
Yeah, the only place I kind of disagree with you on, Andy, is I think it will be a flat 3. If we play a 3, I can see a Diamande, Raskin, Chukwueze. I just
that's
feel,
what I kind of meant. The way they
yeah,
went the second half at Celtic Park.
yeah.
The sort of, I think if that is the way he wants to go, I think that's where it lines up. But if he wants to go with a 10, I'd like to see Mikey Moore rather than Asgard, who's, again, has sort of struggled at the last midweek.
Yeah, but I worry, obviously, if we do go with that flat 3, chance creation, and Chermiti, who hasn't really kicked on since Parkhead, he kind of looks allergic to entering the box at times. But
what I would say is that if you do go with that flat 3, I think that then gives Raskin that license to be the one that breaks on. And you saw Barry Ferguson again talking this week about just being that sort of wee guy that rats forward, gets himself in the edge of the box and busts forward. I think when he's been playing this 6 role, you've not really seen much of that. But as you saw at Parkhead, when he decides to make those wee driving bursts into the box, I think that's when you see Nico Raskin at his best. And I think this is what, if he's ever really going to be the kind of player that Rangers want him to be and that he believes he can be, I think he has to give up this notion that he's there to be the quarterback sitting dictating. He has to be that sort of box-to-box guy that's going to scurry into the box and make chances harm. I think that's, whenever Nico Raskin's been at his best, and I talk about Fenerbahce away, I talk about Celtic Park away last year, I talk about Celtic away the second half last month, I think that's Raskin at his best. And I think maybe in that flat 3, that gives him more of a license to do that. But yeah, as you say, it'll be interesting to see how he does line up tomorrow night.
Yeah, Raskin's been a bit underwhelming for me, actually, despite our upturn in form. I don't know if he fancies that number 6 role. Might get him in the Belgian team a bit easier, but either way, I completely agree. He's far better. Kind of going box to box. So I'm going to ask both of you to get your crystal balls out. As I say, big game in Edinburgh. We've got another huge game on Sunday. Notwithstanding the fact that you can maybe argue that a Motherwell win tomorrow, does that put Motherwell in the title mix? But we'll maybe leave that for the Motherwell podders to discuss because they are having an absolutely incredible season and fair play to them. It's good to see a team, one of the smaller teams, if you like, coming out and really having a go and taking it to teams and playing some great football. But we've got Motherwell tomorrow night, who are 4th in the league. We've got Hearts on Sunday, who are 1st in the league. Come 7 p.m. on Sunday night, where will Rangers be in the league in terms of the league? I'll start with you, Jack.
I think if we play the way we can play, we'll be top of the table. I'm going to put my neck out.
So Hearts to lose tonight?
I think Hibs have a good chance of getting something. So
if Rangers win by 2 goals or more come Sunday, they'll be top of the table on goal difference. So it doesn't necessarily need Hearts to drop points this evening.
I could see a pair of 2-0 victories for Rangers across the week that would put them top of the table.
I mean, I said a few weeks ago before these 4 games, starting with the Hibs game, that I'd have taken 10 points. We obviously dropped points at Hibs. I think if we take 10 points now, it would be an incredible achievement. Andy, how do you think things will be sitting on Sunday evening?
Listen, I think if Rangers go about it the way that they did second half at Celtic Park, then yeah, I can see them getting a result tomorrow at Fir Park. I think if they are hesitant, and I think if they are one pace as they were in Leith, lethargic, I think it could be a difficult evening for them because I think Motherwell, put it this way, they haven't conceded a goal at home during Danny Rohl's entire time as Rangers manager. The last time they conceded a goal was 4 days before Danny Rohl get the gig at Ibrox. So that just shows you how well they're playing, how well drilled they are under Jens Berthel last year. So Rangers really have to be at it. This has to be a top 95%, if not 100% performance to get a result here. That, and some people might scoff at that and say, "Oh, it's only Motherwell," but that tells you how well Motherwell are playing right now. As for Hearts on Sunday, I think that really depends on how Hearts come through tonight. I think Craig Halkett being out for them is a big miss. I was in Paisley last week to see them against St Mirren. I wasn't impressed with them at all going forward, but I think you have to give St Mirren credit for them because they absolutely bombarded Hearts. Thought Hearts defended really stoically, really unlucky to concede the goal 2 minutes from time. But I think I just get a feeling that injuries and suspensions are now starting to catch up with Hearts a wee bit. Shanklin been out, Cammy Devlin been out, Beningme missing a couple of games, Halkett now been out for a game. This is a squad that, as well as much as they've done brilliantly, they rely on their big players, and missing these guys, I think, might start taking a toll now as we turn for the sort of final run in. But yeah, I think Rangers fans should be absolutely encouraged and enthused by what is ahead of them because they've got every right to be because it looked to be such a miserable campaign, and the fact that they are back on, within touch and striking distance of Hearts is absolutely credit to Danny Rohl and his team. I think most fans really thought they would be nowhere near a title race. You look back to where they were at the start of the season, so they're there on merit. If they can perform like they should perform, then they've absolutely every right to believe that they can go and get 6 points from these two games.
It's a very different pressure now, though. Before it was pressure, to win games, to stay in touch. Now, I kind of get the feeling that everyone would it'd be a disappointment not to win the league now, which sounds extraordinary given where Rangers were when Danny Rohl came in. But now in a situation, it's almost like starting again. Obviously, Hearts have got a slight advantage, but we're effectively leveling points with Celtic 3 points ahead. They've got a game in hand. How do we see the players reacting to that pressure?
I just think that the important thing for Rangers fans to remember as much as anything is what Danny Rohl's sort of message of just being calm and not overreacting. And we only have to see, what is it, over a month ago, they obviously lose to Hearts at Tynecastle, and there was a collective sort of outbreak of panic and wailing that was the league title done, that, not beating Hearts were going to storm off onto the title, and, within, I think the next week, Hearts lose at Hibs at Easter Road, and Rangers get their chance. You saw a similar sort of outburst of negativity after the game at Easter Road only a week or so ago. And then again, Hearts go to St Mirren and lose, and Rangers again find themselves back within touching distance. So listen, there will be more twists and turns in this title race. I think there's no doubt about that. I can imagine all three of the leading contenders dropping points. Motherwell might very well find themselves closing the gap and get themselves into the mix as well if they carry on as they are. It's about how you respond to that, and it's about not overreacting. And I think as much of that goes as much for how you respond to a disappointing defeat as how you respond to a huge win. Rangers could go and get a big result at Fir Park tomorrow and think that carried away with it and then get a nasty shock against Hearts. I think it's that old cliche of one game at a time, and it bores us all to tears as journalists. I don't know how many times I've had that phrase uttered back to me by a manager and rolled my eyes sitting in a press conference. But it's absolutely key for Rangers right now. They have to just keep ticking these games off as they go along. If they do that, they'll be there or thereabouts. The one thing for certain is that it's going to be thrilling. How many times times during the years have we been sitting here at this time of year, and you pretty much know who's going to finish where the league. Whoever's whether it be, the majority of times it's been Celtic. Even thinking the Rangers' last title win in 2021, they were a month away now for clinching the title at that point. So it's just so refreshing to have this going, hammering nail all the way to the final whistle.
Well, thankfully, us Rangers fans are known for our patience under pressure, and certainly not throwing the toys out the pram after one defeat. It's fascinating. It'll be fascinating to see what happens. huge week ahead, potentially pivotal. And here's hoping that all's well that ends well at Fir Park tomorrow night. Anyway, we'll wrap it up there, gents. Thanks very much for joining us. You can see this pod in all the usual places, Apple, Spotify and whatnot. Thanks as well to our sponsors at NordVPN and, maybe top of the league or maybe not. We'll see the next time when we discuss all the goings on at Ibrox. Thanks, guys.